So how many people here today already know Sara?
I know me.
And herself. Awesome. Thank you so much for coming out on the day after the 4th of July. We had no idea so many people would show up, so this is awesome. So let me tell you first a little bit about Sara for the people who don't know her. Sara right now is the CEO of a company called Burbly. It helps employees and it helps, here I'll read this thing I wrote. It works to improve hiring for job seekers and companies while reducing gender and racial bias. Sara also has a consulting firm called Inclusion Pro, which support companies in all aspects of building inclusive workplaces. So the inspiration for this, developing solutions that improve diversity, came from her founding of Women Tech Council in 2007, co-founder, right?
Yes.
Awesome. In just 10 years, that community has grown to 10,000 women and men nationwide. Now, over the past 10 years, it has also recognized over 180 women executives, helped more than 2,000 college women in STEM, and inspired more than 12,000 high school girls through the She Tech program. Sorry, my mic's kind of cutting out. Sara spent 20 years within companies, leading operations, strategic partnerships, deal flow, and legal strategy. She was CEO of Applicant Pro, and another HR software as a service company that provided talent recruiting tools to more than 3,000 clients. She was also head of the business development at the School Improvement Network, that is. So you'd think lifelong entrepreneur, right? She was born for this. But it turns out Sara actually started her career as a patent attorney. She was also a partner and shareholder there at Workman Nidegger. She has a law degree from BYU and a bachelor's degree in chemical engineering, which is an awesome career for a woman to start out in, I believe. Sara was adopted from South Korea and raised in Utah. She's married with 2 boys, one of whom is here today. Thank you for joining us, and a dog. Now here's a fun fact. When she was adopted, Sara had a unique tattoo on her arm. Just recently, that very same tattoo helped her find her birth family.
Yeah.
So tell us that story. What happened?
Okay, first of all, I'm going to just fix your mic wire because we promised us ladies we're going to look out for each other.
Okay, thank you.
So it's just crossing a little bit, and I just want to make sure you feel comfortable.
Oh, you're the best.
Because this is what we do as if we're friends. Okay, awesome.
Thank you. Okay.
And I don't know if that'll fix the sound. I don't know. That is such a random thing that has just recently happened. And right now, actually, we have a DNA test that's out right now to just confirm that they're my real biological family. They've shown me, so apparently I have 2 older brothers in Korea that I never knew about. And they both also have the same tattoo, which my father put on all of our arms when we were placed into the welfare system in Korea. So if we got separated, we'd be able to find each other. So it's just been a pretty miraculous story. And I just kind of felt like, I'm this far in life, my children are interested in knowing a little bit more about our biological family in Korea. And so I just thought, when you're given a gift like that when you're 3 years old, such a unique thing to be able to identify, potentially be able to identify your family, I just thought, I better at least try and see if I can find my family. So it's been kind of the thing that has made it easier. I think the most adoptees, a lot of people never find their birth families, but I was just lucky enough to have a unique mark. Kind of be like the Annie Lockett, I guess.
Yeah, it sounds like a movie.
Yeah.
Reminds me of Tigran's presentation, a whole beginning, middle, end. That's so cool.
That's right.
So did I get everything right about your bio?
Yeah, I mean, as everybody knows, bios are, make everybody sound so successful and like we've done all these things, but, life just has a way of happening. And I think we're just all trying to figure out our entrepreneurial path and where we're going. And so I don't want anybody ever to think that I've, quote, unquote, made it. I got asked that like 5 years ago. I'm like, I don't know what that means. I don't know. We're all just trying to do interesting things with being entrepreneurs and startup people.
Well, I think we can all agree, though. It's very impressive. I think you're a great example to many women and men. So how did you go from being a patent attorney to being a serial entrepreneur?
Well, that ties really well into the Women Tech Council story for me personally. So I started Women Tech Council actually when I was a patent attorney. So a lot of people don't know that. They think that it happened when I moved into startups. Right.
But no, it was together?
It was while I was at the law firm. And, back then, so remember, Women Tech Council started in 2007, and we actually really started talking about organizing it in 2006. I mean, that was over 12 years ago now.
Yeah.
And back then, I think the culture was so different than what we have now. It's just night and day, really. Back then, nobody really knew where the women in tech were. Nobody knew where the leaders were. There was this question, can women really have a successful tech career in Utah? Right? And we've been able to sort of put that to rest by raising the visibility of the great careers that women are having in Utah, hundreds of them, thousands of them. And so that's no longer a question, but it was very, very different 12 years ago. We do a lot around the tech and the STEM talent pipeline, right? So remembering to get into a patent law degree, you have to have a STEM background, a STEM degree. So think about the pipeline that goes into STEM, and then you have to get a law degree. So what percentage of women getting STEM degrees are going to law degree? Not very many. And so with me being a patent attorney in Utah, I was one of very, very few. And I think when you are, in careers where it's very, very, patent law is extremely male dominated. You get to this point where you're like, I would really like mentorship, but I don't know where to find it. And I don't know, there's nobody within the firm actually that knows how to mentor me, being a female professional.
Yeah.
And so I found that I had to look outside of the firm, and that really got me to associating with other women professionals. And then Women Tech Council came along. And one of the things it did for me is as I started to interact with other women tech professionals, and we were all working in tech in some capacity, right, helping to build and grow tech companies, I started to actually visualize what women can do with their careers. I started meeting women that owned their own companies, that were startup entrepreneurs, that were doing these really cool things with their careers. And I actually started to think differently about what I could do with my patent law experience, because I thought the only thing I'm good at is patent law. I really was convinced I had no other skills. There wasn't really anything, that I could possibly do. And it was by interacting with so many really amazing women and started to really open my mind and make me think differently about what are the things that I could do. Now, I will say when I shifted and left, so I was a partner at the firm, and I said, hey, I'm going to go work at this ed tech company. Everybody thought I was crazy. For one, because nobody really, patent law back then was it was a great career, really well paid, one of the top paid legal professionals. And so, I got a bunch of, wow, you're crazy. Got a bunch of people, oh, I'm really jealous. And then I totally left and I went and ran a video production team.
Wow.
Which I had no training for at all. But I was like at this mindset where I was like, I am going to try something different. I'm going to try something new. I am going to learn a bunch of new skills. And I was totally open to it. And it was just that process of becoming open that totally gave me the ability to just take on all these new things. And so that's when my career trajectory changed completely from law. So I left the practice of law, and I just started doing a bunch of new things and just learning on the job everything that I needed to know.
Wow, and I love that about startups. A lot of you guys can probably attest. You have to learn so much to be part of a startup, or especially to be a founder. So let's talk a little bit more about the Women Tech Council. How did that all come together? So Women Tech Council taught me everything I learned about startups. Everything.
So this was actually even way before customer development became a really strong thing. And I don't know if RevU, if you guys use a lean canvas or a customer development.
Oh, yeah, lean canvas.
Okay, so lean canvassing and customer development have become more formal terms in startup. But back then, we decided, because there had been a couple of organizations that had tried to support women in tech before Women Tech Council. And so it was really important for us to think about, we want to be able to have a sustainable organization. So a lot of nonprofits, they'll sort of go like this, right? You get a team really excited, and then like 2 or 3 years later, it just sort of flattens out and implodes, right? And so we thought, we want something that will make a difference and make an impact in our tech community here in Utah. So we actually ended up doing dozens of interviews of leaders in venture, education, tech, other women leaders, before we ever formalized Women Tech Council. So that sounds very, very familiar, right? When you're doing a startup, you want to do a bunch of customer validation. And we'd ask them, what is the thing that we can do that will make the most impact for you? So if we were talking to a tech CEO, right, or to somebody in venture, we'd ask them these questions because we wanted to make sure that the organization lasted longer than just the founders, the level of energy, right? Yeah. And then we also wanted to make sure that it would truly make a difference to our community. So now we're seeing in our community a lot of great women-focused organizations, which is just fantastic. There's so much work to be done, and I love seeing that. Where Women Tech Council decided to focus 12 years ago is around 4 key pillars, which were solidified after all of these interviews. So networking, opportunity, visibility, and I'm forgetting the 4th one: networking, visibility, opportunity, and there's a 4th one out there.
Anybody?
And I've said it like thousands of times, and I can't believe I can't remember the 4th one. But I'm sure.
It's good. It happens on stage.
I'll remember.
Okay.
I'll remember in like 5 minutes, and it will just come out randomly. But these anchors actually have never changed over the last 12 years. And even when we look at the programs that we build now, we actually compare them to our pillars. And if they're not satisfying those 4 pillars, we actually don't do it. So for give you an example. Politics. People come to us all the time and ask us to get really engaged in politics. That's not one of our pillars. There are other amazing organizations that focus on women's rights and things like that. And we, great. That work is so important, and policy. But we're very careful not to strongly veer away from those 4 pillars, because it's what the community, what our Women Tech Council community is built around.
Yeah. So how did you decide which programs to pursue during the last 12 years? How did that go?
We're big believers in iteration. So we try things small, we test it out, and then we get feedback, and then we iterate and improve. If the feedback is that was really lame, let's not ever do that again, we just scrap it. Like we don't do things. We've never had a full year calendar, because we don't know in a year exactly what we're going to be doing, right? We're very fluid, because we want to make sure we have flexibility to be able to craft the program. So for example, just recently, we just spun up a high school entrepreneurship tech program. And it took us about 4 weeks to spin it up, market it, and then we had 30 kids sign up and 20 consistently show up. 10 boys, 10 girls, and we had this entrepreneurship program where we pulled 16 expert entrepreneurs to come do workshops and entrepreneur highlights and tell these kids how they built and all the mistakes that they made building their companies. But we decided to build that 3 months ago, right, and spin it up, run it, test it, and then get feedback on it. And that's the way we like to make sure that we're staying relevant to what is truly needed in our community.
Oh, interesting. So how did it go?
I don't know. Thaddeus, how did it go? He's our high school kid. Good, thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
The thing that we are really big believers, because we also run a high school girls tech program called She-Tech. Yeah, and we'll get thousands of high school girls. And we've just learned over the years, this will be our 6th year running that one. And we'll get over 2,000 high school girls coming to this one. Just working with high school kids over the years, we've just learned to keep it interactive, keep it hands-on, and don't lecture. And as long as you can make sure to have that interactivity, and so with the high school entrepreneurship program, we kept it highly, highly interactive to make sure to engage these young minds. And so those are things that we've been able to learn as we've built these programs over time.
Oh, that's so cool. It's so cool to see an organization grow in that way, and so responsive to the needs of the community.
Yeah, it's
that it's serving. So I mentioned in the introduction that you have 10,000 members in your community, men. You had mentioned earlier that you have always had men as partners, even though it's an organization kind of for women or about women.
That's right.
So can you tell us about that? How did that work out?
I will tell you, I'm a very good salesperson, because anytime you put the word woman in a title, you have to be very, very convincing. And so, but we were very fortunate very early on to have male partners, and that was key for us because, as a practical reality, if you're building opportunity for women in their careers, in leadership roles, you're actually working very strongly with men. In my particular world, I've always worked with men. All of my major opportunities have always come from men. So it really made no sense at all for us to be a women's only organization, just from a practical matter. And so we made sure from the very get-go to strongly include men in our conversations. We've always had 35% of men on our advisor board. The Women Tech Awards, which this is the 11th Women Tech Awards this year, if you can believe it.
Oh, congratulations.
Our very first one, we partnered with Mountain West Capital Network. How many of you guys know of Mountain West Capital Network?
I've heard of it.
right? It's mostly like finance, capital. It's an organization around growth capital, right? And it's, back then it was mostly men, and I don't know what the makeup is today, but we approached them. We said, hey, we're going to do the first Women Tech Awards, and we'd love your support. Can you partner with us to do this awards? Help us get sponsors, help us structure the event, and help us to make sure that this runs really successfully. They totally came to the table, helped us get sponsors, helped us organize. So Tom Lund, who's at Tanner LLC, helped us structure it, and he's actually been one of our judges every single year. He's phenomenal. And we have award presenters. So the companies will get up and present awards to the finalists. We take 17 finalists, and then they present awards to about 5 category winners, right? And that first year, I think 90% of the award presenters were men, which is very different than what you'll see now. We'll have a lot of women because there's a lot of female executives now, right? We always like to have executives presenting the awards. But back then we had these men step up and really lift us on their shoulders to make sure our event was super successful. So we've always been really appreciative to the partnerships that we've had with men over the years to grow our organization.
Oh, that's great. And yeah, definitely with so many men in the field, you have to kind of, I don't know, have allies. I don't know if you even call them allies or partners.
Allies, partners, and also just really great relationships. So what it looks like now for us in terms of male and female partnerships, we still in our state, we still struggle with, we're under the national level of female executives in tech companies, right?
I've heard that,
so we're about 5%. National average is probably 10 to 15%. And so that's, we still have work to do as a community. And so we recognize that most of the tech CEOs right now are men. If you think about it. So we've had CEO roundtables for the last couple of years. Most of them are men, and they come to learn, they come to network. And then we also have events where our male CEOs and female CEOs, where they exist, are also networking strongly with women in our C-suite. So women VP level or above who are ready for that next C-suite opportunity. Because all of those roles are actually built off of relationships, right? You actually don't hire a partner. You don't hire somebody in the C-suite by posting a job posting. It's just,
for sure.
Yeah, that doesn't happen, right? You build it because there's somebody amazing that you are referred to in your network or somebody that you already know. You're asking your friends, I'm looking for an amazing CMO or an amazing chief product officer or an amazing, chief people officer, right? That's what the CEOs are asking. And so what we're trying to do now is trying to get more women into those natural pathways where they're being visible, and being given those opportunities for those great leadership roles.
Okay, thank you. So let's talk a little bit more about the development of Women Tech Council. How did it scale? And it went from, as I understand, everybody who was part of Women Tech Council had a full-time job besides.
We still do.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So tell us about that.
Yeah. So it's not. I mean, we don't talk too much about this, but the executive board is an unpaid board, and so we've lived off sponsorships for the most part, right? We have amazing corporate sponsors that have just been so helpful, even from the very beginning. Some of our sponsors are the same as they were 12 years ago, so we're really grateful for that. But all of the corporate sponsorships, none of that money comes to me or Sid. It goes to make sure that our very lean staff is paid for so that we can operate. So I attribute it to an amazing team. And then also, we have an amazing community. So we'll take SheTech, for example. So when we build a program, we're always trying to find ways to plug companies in. So we sit there and think about our tech companies. So let's say they want to contribute back to STEM. Well, usually they don't have a lot of time and bandwidth, right? And so we build our program so it makes it easier for companies to come in and contribute and give back. So SheTech, for example, is built so that we can have mentors, workshop presenters, and also company sponsors and companies that come and do these really fun tech zone booths that the girls do these hands-on STEM activities.
Oh, fun.
So we had, for 2,000 high school girls, last year, I think we had over 100 companies involved. Over 600 industry members showed up for that day to spend time with the girls, right? And so it's our amazing community that comes in, they show up, and then they make it possible for us to be able to scale these programs, to be able to reach thousands of girls that need to see these mentors. So most of the girls that come to our SheTech program, 85% have never met another woman in STEM. So if you think about how women choose their careers, education, right? They're thinking, I want to be a teacher because I I've been to school, or I want to be a nurse, I've gone to the doctors, or I want to be a veterinarian, I have a pet, right? But they can't connect tech because they're not meeting other women in tech. And so when they get to meet all these women in tech, they get to realize they don't all look the same, they don't all act the same, right? But I get to see a lot of different examples of ways that women are working in STEM, and I could be like that. Like, I can see myself doing that.
Also, it sounds like the partnerships were a hugely important part of getting Women Tech Council, you know, from its early beginnings 10 years ago when, you know, there weren't many women in tech, now to where it's so big.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or is it the mission? Or is it a combination of those?
I think it's both. I think early on, we were lucky enough to have people that really cared deeply about the mission. They still do.
Yeah.
And we're actually a very fortunate time where it's being widely talked about, way more than it was 12 years ago.
Yeah.
But our partners are we have just found amazing people that are committed. Our executive board, I mean, all of that, those hundreds, thousands of hours that they give, you know, to provide strategic and all of the resources. We've just been very fortunate. So, but like I said, you know, it's been a lot of pitches. A lot of Sydney and I still do most of the fundraising, so we're meeting with people constantly, right, to grow. And the other thing that I have been able to get a view of that I think is pretty unique is I get to meet with a lot of the state leaders as well, and a lot of the community in the economic development. And I think if I had stayed in tech or stayed in patent law, I might not have had this perspective of all of the things that are happening across the state to make change happen and to build our talent pipeline. And so for me, it's been really amazing to see how it all connects, how higher ed and then the state office of ed and then GoEd and the local offices, how they all operate together and how they all collaborate. We live in a pretty amazing state. And then you know, we were fortunate to be able to get 2 state grants from Talent Ready Utah to help us scale a couple of our major programs so that they can reach statewide. And that has been awesome because it's also been able to allow us to reach more rural areas of the population as well, because Utah, we've got an incredibly diverse population across our state.
True. So for entrepreneurs here today, what do you think they can learn from your experience with building the Women Tech Council?
I think, you know, Simon Sinek talks a lot about the why. You've got to master the why, master how you message that mission. I will say that I've done a lot of other deal flow as well, you know, on top of Women Tech Council, but Women Tech Council has been not only the most, the easiest to be able to message to people, but also the most, just the most worthwhile thing, right? And I really, after 12 years, I still feel just as passionate about the organization as I did 12 years ago.
Wow.
And so I tell people that are doing startups, you have to be able to visualize yourself doing this for at least 10 years. I mean, a lot of
that's great advice.
a lot of the, you know, Utah's a really small community, right? Relatively, right? We're in a pretty small pond, and I think it's easy because I get to interact with a lot of entrepreneurs, and it can be frustrating for them to see all the visibility that certain startups get in the community, right? It seems like there's only a handful. And I have to continually remind themselves, you didn't see them for the 10 years before they were getting this visibility, right? Because every startup is working hard for at least, especially if you're bootstrapped. I mean, you're really committing to about 3 years of starting, 3 years of maybe growth, and then maybe 3 years of hitting your stride, right? Before you actually, like, I've met a lot of these entrepreneurs before they get that big visibility, and they're just humble, working hard, and just building, right? Constantly, day-to-day building. And so you have to find something that you are passionate about building for 10 years.
Yeah.
Right? And I wouldn't invest your time and energy unless you can really see yourself doing that and say, hey, 10 years down the road, I still want to be just as passionate about this as I am today.
Yeah. Oh, that is great advice. So speaking of passions, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about Burbly.
Oh, okay.
This is your latest project, right?
This is, yes. So I am beta testing a platform so my husband's actually the CTO, he's a software developer.
Oh, cool.
And one of the things that I am passionate about is how do we make hiring easier for companies and job seekers, right? So working with my other HR tech company, HR systems are being built to really follow the traditional process that has been created over the last decades, right? Of how do you hire people? The challenge is technology has made it so difficult because now we can source hundreds and thousands of candidates. And so now the HR job is actually harder because now you have to filter down to the ideal candidate and maybe hire, I don't know, one person out of the 200 resumes that you just got, right? So it's challenging. So Burbly is trying to attack that from a different angle, more of a marketplace angle, where companies and job seekers can find each other quicker, kind of like an eHarmony for job seekers and for companies.
Oh, that's cool.
So one of the things I also am passionate about as I build these tools is how do I help reduce gender and race bias at the same time, right? Is there a way to build technology in a way that helps to equalize the playing field for everyone? And so that's what I'm hoping to build with Burbly.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, well, because you can't have an inclusive workplace if you only hire people who look like you.
Right.
I guess. So how does that help companies?
So with the companies, so one of the things that we have right now, and I don't know, is there a screenshot to, did I send you guys another screenshot?
Oh, you did. It looks like it did not make it on the slides.
Okay, no problem. I was like, if I can reference it.
Yeah.
So right now, what you can do as a company is you can go in and so if you get a bunch of job candidates, you can send them a job fit survey, right? And it'll ask them a bunch of questions in 5 key areas. And what I'm trying to get at is not skills, right? I mean, skills is important, and you'll get there, and you will figure out how to test somebody's skills. But so many times we have job seekers that come to us, and you want to really understand what they care about in their environment, and if they're going to thrive in your particular environment, is this the right fit for them? And I'm not saying fit as in let's go find people that look and act like us, but the fact is we're building an environment like RevU, right? It's got a particular environment. It's got a particular vibe, right? And you want to make sure that people come in here and they're like, okay, this is going to work for them. So how do you assess that much earlier on and get at the things that they really, really care about? So, for example, remote work, let's say somebody really cares about that, but they're too afraid to tell you that right up front in the job interview. Well, that just sucks up people's time, right? Why not have a way to get at those things that they really care about first? If it's not a great fit, don't spend time and energy talking to them, right? Send those job seekers to the companies that are going to give them a great fit where it's a much better use of their time.
That sounds so interesting. I'm excited to see that get going.
Yeah. So looking for testers, if anybody's brave.
Right, I was going to ask you that. Yeah, so just Sarah Jones.
Yeah, just email me at one of my emails, one of my 5 that I have.
All right, let us know. If you can't find it, let me know. I'll get you in touch.
Yes.
So let's open it up for some audience questions. Katie?
So I heard a lot of reference to you just doing lots of things at the same time, and I'm not sure what all of those things are, but I've heard you say you're balancing different things. What's your kind of best advice for balancing different types of things you're doing?
Well, I have not been very good at that in my career. Right now, my best advice is to just be hyper-disciplined and to be hyper-focused. So, for example, I kind of went through this phase of like, okay, how do I say no to certain things? And I'll use this example because at first when I started trying to do this, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to offend so many people, like, right? Because we always get worried about like being so responsive. Like, right, for my personal branding, I want to be responsive. If anybody comes to me, ever wants time, right? I never turn anybody down for time. It is just one of those things that's really important because, it's just one of those, how would you like to be treated type of things, right? Sure. And so I got to this point where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm doing a startup plus a consulting firm and the Women Tech Council is growing so rapidly. Like, how do I balance plus my cute family, right? How do I make sure they get enough of my time? So I started to think about, well, how do, all these networking events, like when people want to go to lunch with you, breakfast, whatever, and like pick your brains, which is totally fine. I was like, I got to find a better way to do that. So I started using Calendly, if you've ever used that to schedule your things. And I started thinking like, okay, is there a better way that I can leverage technology to reconnect or talk to those people that I want to talk to, but not, streamline that time. So Calendly lets you send them a link, and then they can go pick the time slot, right? that works for them. And so when, you know, and I don't do this for everyone, I have to prioritize, right? Everybody has to prioritize. But if it's a meeting where I feel like I can do it over the phone, I'm like, why am I trying to do in person, especially since it could be anywhere from Provo to Ogden or whatever, right? It's a lot of driving time. So I started sending them there and saying, hey, you know what? Friday afternoons is fantastic for me to be able to have these type of calls. I do networking calls then. I do catch-ups. I do things. Friday afternoons are slow for everybody. So I say, hey, thanks for reaching out. You know, Fridays are fantastic for me. Go pick a time slot. I'm going to save us each like 10 emails. Right? And when I first started doing that, I would like, oh, I hope I don't offend somebody. Like, I'm sure they really wanted to. And I found that people would just sign up. And it just, do you know, like that first week I did it, I swear I saved like 15 hours.
Wow.
And it was like a miracle. And so I found that if I can be hyper disciplined to just say, okay, these are the things I am going to do, these are the things I'm not going to do, but I'm going to adjust, be creative about how I still do them, but be okay about changing it because my time, right? I need to be able to, because one of the things I found with startup people, I don't know if it's a Utah thing either, is they tend to want to go to everything. Right? And I've always thought, and I got sucked into that too with my first startup. I started going to everything. And I was like, why am I doing that? Like, I should be building my business. And so I actually find, for me personally now, it's okay to just do the phone call. It's okay not to right? It's okay not to go to all the networking events. Go to the ones that are incredibly important, but then learn to say no or be creative about the other things.
Thank you. Great answer. Any other questions in the back?
Yeah, I have two questions. First question is, what are you finding like the major hurdles for women to get involved in technology? And also, what can men do to help women overcome those hurdles?
Good question.
Great question. So I think there are a lot of women that are getting more and more into technology, which is awesome. Like boot camps, dev boot camps, there's so many more women getting into those programs. I love it. I think the thing that men can do, and I've observed this over time, is they can actually invite women more. So a lot of times people will come to me and say, hey, Sarah, we're doing this event and we're going to give Women Tech Council members free registration. And I'd be like, then you don't know anything about how women choose to do networking. Because a free discount, right, if they don't understand the value proposition, just doesn't really mean that much. I mean, we're not that cheap that we need discounts. We'll pay for stuff that we want to go to.
Right, yeah.
But you have to convince us that that event is worthwhile to spend my time. Like when I'm busy doing this, this, and this, and raising a family, right? I have to be convinced that that event is going to be worth my time and effort. And so the thing that I've observed over time, like 5 years ago, I did a startup weekend here in Provo. I organized it. And we had a really amazing turnout. And if anybody's been to Startup Weekend, if any of you done, I guess it hasn't been around for a while, but yeah, so they're super fun. They're 54 hours, and you spend a lot of time that weekend building and launching a startup with a team. I think it's fantastic when I see women there, but traditionally you've only seen 5% women at Startup Weekend. Now the Startup Weekend Provo that we did, that I organized, there was 10% women. It was just awesome. So 150, right, and 15 women. And I actually didn't know very many of the women, right, because they thought, oh, we're going to get all these women because Sarah's helping to organize this. So I went around and interviewed all the women, and I said, what brought you to Startup Weekend? And every single one of them said, I was invited by a male colleague. And so when people come to me now and say, hey, Sarah, I want you to promote this to your members. We're going to get free registration. I'm like, have your members invite women. It's the most powerful thing because women want to know that they're welcome. They want to know that they are wanted, right?
Yeah.
And if they don't, and if they don't feel like nobody knows somebody there or feel welcome in some way, then they're very unlikely to show up. And so the thing I think men can do that's really powerful is to invite.
Oh, that's
and to
great.
not expect the women's groups to do the inviting, but to actually take on that challenge and do the inviting themselves.
Oh, that's great. And on that note, we have probably more women here today than any other RevU, so that's awesome. But all the men in the audience and women, please feel free to invite a woman next time. You know, whether your wife, entrepreneurs, spouses are a huge part of their success, or a colleague. I'm so glad you mentioned that.
Yes.
All right, one more audience question. Robin, is that right?
So if we have a startup, how can we get more involved with the Women Tech Council?
Great question.
So anyone actually can be a member of Women Tech Council. It's free. And that was one of the things that we decided from the very beginning is we're not going to charge membership fees. So you just go sign on, and then you get added to our email subscription list. But to engage, so to be more involved with Women Tech Council, I would just encourage companies just to follow the events that we have, and then to come in and get involved. So for the Women Founders, we've done the Capital Forum, right, where we share. I mean, venture is obviously very challenging for women, right? And so we share other ways for women to get financial resources, grants, and other ways of financing their businesses. And then we also have a Women Founders Forum as well. There's no cost to be part of that. So if there are women founders in the group, just let me know. We'll make sure. We tend to try to segment some of our groups, like the Women Founders, right? We're going to have a special email list just for the Women Founders. So if there are those type of events, we want to make sure that you get messaged those. So if you are a women founder, make sure to let me know. We can make sure to include you on the list. And then really anyone is welcome for Women Tech Council. Just to be clear, Women Tech Council is anyone that's helping to grow a tech company. So it is not just engineers, even though Sid and I happen to have engineering degrees. It is anyone that is contributing to the growth of a tech company. And that's our mission, is to help our tech companies be successful.
Oh, that's so cool. All right, last question, one we try to ask every guest. Throughout all of your serial entrepreneurship, what are you most proud of?
Well, I think I'm most proud of, I am most proud of Women Tech Council.
Yeah.
I think that anytime that you can contribute to something that has such an impact and is able to help change lives, it's super powerful, even if, I'm not making a ton of money off of it. We have now, because of our She Tech program, we now have girls. One of my friends sent me a private email, and he said, I'm doing the Sterling Scholar judging competition.
Oh, right.
And he said, and I'm seeing women come through the Sterling Scholar program now in computer science.
Wow.
That say that She Tech's the thing that got them started in learning and loving tech, right?
Oh, wow.
And so, even if we're able to scale to 2,000 girls, the fact that you can change lives one by one, it's amazing. So I'm going to just say, I'm most proud of Women Tech Council.
Oh, that's so cool. Well, thank you for sharing your time with us today.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Thank you. Darren?
Yeah, let's hear it.
Thank you, guys.
Sara, thank you so much.
Well, thank you. It was a pleasure.
We have a gift for you.
Oh, so kind.
Someone's grabbing that. And while they bring that up, I have to tell you, I am so impressed with what you've accomplished with your life and your career. And I know that you've prioritized all of that with your family and with incredible achievements in giving back to others.
Oh, thanks.
Which is so nice. And we'd like to send you on your way with these gifts.
Cool.
I hope you'll enjoy them and be able to use them. And
this is cool. I'm going to Alaska this week, so maybe this feels very rugged and Alaska. That's perfect. Thank you.
And I had the great privilege of first meeting Sara, like I said, when we were at Imagine Learning, but later, Rebecca and I were launching a product for one of our companies in Las Vegas.
CES.
At CES. Yep. And so I've seen evidence of the fact that Sara wears many hats. I mean, KSL saw her video production skills and hired her to come and run the crew and to film all the new products and the new companies and to interview us. It was really fantastic.
Now that's just a fun thing that Sid and I do. So we just do that one for fun. Yeah, it's been awesome, and we just really, when I would never have thought when we started Women Tech Council that I get so much exposure to all these different opportunities, like going down and being a KSL correspondent. What? Okay, check that off my bucket list. Right? So it's been awesome, and getting to know you guys, and we've been also sharing this on Instagram too. So hopefully more people will learn about RevU.
We love that.
Awesome.
So
all right, let's give Sara a hand.
Thanks so much. This is awesome.
Well, guys, as we wrap up, let me just share with you, there are lots of things that I hope you took as takeaways today. I was sitting by a few people in the back, and they already shared a few of them that they've shared, that they took from the talks. As you heard, both AJ and Tigran share 5 steps to being able to make video a powerful way of growing your business. You've heard from Sara about the way that she has led a life where she's been able to go out and to, as a serial entrepreneur, find success by taking on new challenges and creating opportunities for others as she does so. And I know many of you are doing similarly meaningful and effective things in your lives, and super appreciate your time here with us. Feel free to stay after and chat if you'd like. And we always end every one of these with our RevU cheer, which is just ready, set, rev. Are you ready? Set, rev.